Hello and welcome to a post wrestling review of a number of recent New Japan Pro Wrestling cards, including matches from the Soul Tour, the Death Pain Invitational, and Tanahashi Jam, culminating with today's card featuring an ad hoc gauntlet match for the last spot in this year's G1 and two title matches. My name is Bruce Lord, and I'm joined, as I always am, for these shows by Karen Peterson. Karen, we're doing things a little bit differently today, kind of doing a smorgasbord style show from cards over the past 2 weeks rather than just one, wake up in the morning, watch the whole show, hop onto StreamYard to talk about with you. And we're also doing this on the free feed today and not behind the cafe paywall.
Yeah, it's the we have a sampler. It's like post ProRes New Japan specific edition to recap everything and get ready for the G1 in a couple of weeks. But yeah, it was I'm glad to be here, but as we know, the very much like My Heart Will Go On, the Goto Revolution will go on and on and on and on.
Yes. As has been widely reported both by yourself and WH Park on Post Pro Res a couple of days ago,
Yeah.
and also obviously by John and Way. We do have a new IWGP World Champion in Zack Sabre Jr. We will, of course, be getting to that match. Everything tied in with that. Still, as of right now, as of 12:52 p.m. Pacific time here on July 6th. Still no news as to when that match will be up on New Japan World for North American or Western viewers. But for those of us who watch the Asahi stream live, let's say, we will be talking, wink, wink, we will be talking about all of that and everything to do with kind of the I feel like this is going to kind of end up being a little bit of a State of the Union show
Yes.
collectively about New Japan as we kind of look at 2 weeks worth of shows here and where things lie as we head into the G1 in a couple of weeks' time. Much like last year, a lot of important stuff was just kind of snuck onto this pre-G1 tour kind of at the last minute. And once you factored in the Death Pain Invitational, effectively a death match, Desperado, Jun Kasai produce show, and then the very, very interesting produce show that the Tanahashi Jam card ended up being. There was just a lot happening in the promotion between Dominion, when you and I would have spoken last, and the beginning of G1, some of which made for some very good wrestling, but a lot of which also caused a fair bit of kind of confusion and consternation. I think the way the Dominion card did, right? Which again
Yeah.
featured some really good matches and then just some absolute head scratching doubling down on House of Torture and a few other threads that kind of are indicative of a lot of what's been happening in New Japan in 2025. This isn't necessarily the place for an extended discussion along these lines, but just to kind of to build on what you and WH were saying a couple of days ago, I just wanted to throw in my own 2 cents about the Aaron Wolf signing, which I really want to kind of stress here is a very, very big deal in Japan for Japanese audiences, as far as
Yes.
I've been able to understand it, right? The comparison between Wolf as a former Olympic gold medalist and Kurt Angle signing with the WWF those many years ago has been made. The issue, of course, being that Wolf is just much more of a well-known figure in Japan. Judo is a much more broadly known and broadly discussed sport amongst the general population than collegiate wrestling is in the United States. So he's somebody who has a whole lot of public profile. This is akin to I don't know, a former NFL or NBA #1 pick or something like that, electing to go with the WWE or AEW or whatever it might be. As I think I was talking about with John a little while ago, the real kind of gravity and seriousness with which that whole press conference in which Wolf was introduced was presented, for me, it was great to see that. It was really nice to see this, no, we are taking this seriously. We
Yeah.
are going to be, putting our best foot forward in introducing this person who you may already know as a celebrated athlete, as part of our future moving forward. The contrast between the introduction of Wolf and all of the ways in which you, myself, WH, everybody else has kind of been pulling our hair out in terms of the presentation of some of the younger talent that's
Yeah.
already in New Japan over the last couple of years just really shows, this kind of left hand, right hand sort of distinction. I
I
think
mean,
in terms of, you know, they can get behind somebody and present them as though
Yeah.
they are a big serious deal when they want to, is my point, I guess.
Yeah, absolutely. And it's one of those things, like, even when they signed Boltin Oleg, he didn't have this level of presentation. It was, he was brought in under, I believe it was Yuji Nagata had scouted him and brought him over, but there wasn't this massive press conference. There wasn't the pomp and circumstance that Wolf has been getting. But I think it's also because I believe they said he's half Japanese, if I'm not mistaken.
Yes, he's
so
yeah.
it's kind of like a homegrown national. Not that Oleg Boltin isn't worth celebrating, but it's the fact that it's somebody of Japanese heritage that it has made it to like the Olympic level, as opposed to Jeff Cobb, who was representing Guam, or Oleg, who was very accomplished amateur. So it's one of those things where it's nice to see. I just want to see more of it moving forward. I want big deals to be made about like a lot of things.
Speaking of Nagata, we've got Yuma Anzai kind of like wandering off into the middle distance now. He's got, that's the real Infinity Gauntlet. Forget the old, Triple H Infinity Gauntlet. I mean, Nagata getting Yuma Anzai back and signing him to New Japan. That's the real. There's a couple of. We're going to get to a couple of people that there was some chatter about in terms of possible promotional jumping over the last couple of weeks, but who knows? It's very difficult to distinguish smoke from fire when it comes to these sorts of things in contract negotiations in Japan.
Yeah.
So we are going to start by getting into the Seoul tour that just concluded earlier today in Korakuen. But I would say for the first few days, outside of the debuts of Young Lions, Tatsuya Matsumoto, and New Japan Strong Survivor, Zane J, a familiar presence on our now sidelined New Japan Strong shows that Karen and I do. And then also there was a Tanahashi and Honma match, which was exactly what you would expect Honma and Tana to look like in 2025. There wasn't too much of note on the Seoul tour until night 5 on June 23rd, when a somewhat thin Korakuen's crowd of 1,100 people saw 2 G1 qualifying matches, the first of which being an excellent B-block play-in match between Drilla Maloney and Tomohiro Ishii. This was their third singles match, and I thought the best one, really living up to the potential Maloney's work and presentation has been promising over the last year or so. Obviously, we know that Ishii is aging, and we've heard kind of rumors behind the scenes that, oh God, guys, do you really need me to strap up and suit up and strap in for another G1?
Yes.
Is that something that he really wants to? Well, we want that. We want that.
It's what I want to be what I want.
But I'm getting the sense that, that Big Tom might be kind of like, having a good hard look in the mirror. But that said, right, when he is called on slightly more sparingly, he still absolutely delivers. This went about 17 minutes at a pretty full tilt throughout, which included an avalanche Falcon Arrow from Maloney, the rarely seen Ishii driller from Ishii. He hasn't busted that out in a number of years. And then Maloney putting some respect on the Stone Put Bull's name by opting for 2 driller killers before finishing him. You've heard Karen and I say this, if you're behind the post cafe paywall, that the driller killer is absolutely one of the most protected moves in New Japan right now. But Maloney wanted to make sure, and so he double tapped Ishii before cementing his own spot in the B block. Maloney is not Ishii, obviously, but he's, I think, more than capable at this point of bringing that sort of, never open weight intensity you want when you are 3/4 of the way through the G1 in front of a small Hamamatsu crowd, and you just want, you need some juice, you need some adrenaline. I think that this is kind of the spot that the companies wanted to kind of have Hinare in for the past few years, barring his sorts of injuries. And Maloney's a really good fill in here, I think.
I still think it's criminal that both Maloney and Ishii had to have a qualifying match for the G1. There are, I'm not going to name names, but there are other folks that are listed in the main pool that should have been required to have a qualifying match in lieu of these two. Because, when we talk about work rate, especially because you and I we've done G1 shows together for, the past couple of years, Ishii has always been a constant. He's one of the guys you can go to. He's one of the guys who's always consistently, does he dial it in sometimes? Yeah, absolutely. But at the same time, that if you need him to win, you need him to lose, it doesn't matter. He'll do his best either way. I think him putting over Drilla is a great thing. I also think that Drilla, he's one that people should be earmarking for the G1 this year. I'm not saying that he's going to win it, But I think that, his jump from junior heavyweight to senior heavyweight, no, to heavyweight has been one of the ones I've enjoyed the most. And I haven't enjoyed that jump very much since, I want to say, Shingo going heavyweight. I mean, Ospreay
Yeah,
going heavyweight was good, but it reminds me more of Shingo going heavyweight than Ospreay going
agreed.
heavyweight.
Yeah, agreed. To that kind of, I mean, it's really also a case where, I think we sort of kind of have this idea that like, oh, send this person to Japan and they'll figure shit out or whatever. That doesn't happen overnight. The first couple of tours that Maloney was on there, no, and it wasn't just the fact that he was aligned with the United Empire, just the actual presentation did seem very a bit scattered or whatever. But it's one case where like kind of the harder edged heel turn really did him a world of good.
Absolutely.
And I think he's really like, he isn't necessarily always having the most high profile matches, but he's somebody who, in the spots that he's given, has absolutely been delivering, and is, to my mind, been one of the most consistent, both as a singles and a tag. I really liked, the tag with him and Connors as well.
Yeah, they did really well, and I'm still waiting for that Maloney never open weight run.
Oh yeah, yeah.
I think he would be slotted in there perfectly.
Oh yeah.
Before working his way up the card.
Yeah. I'm sure you'll have him and Oleg to look forward to at some point or another. Although I think are they in the same block? I don't have the blocks pulled up right in front of me, which I probably should. But
I will pull the blocks up. Hold on.
Thank you so much. While you're doing that, I will mention that our second qualifier on the night of the 23rd was an A block play-in between Callum Newman and sentimental favorite Taichi. This was really a match I thought built more around Taichi's pace and style than Newman. And I thought, Newman looked good here. You could still see him having to try to kind of work and hustle not hustle and slow things down a little bit to kind of like measure up to the very big Broadway styled New Japan main event house style. And this did end up feeling a little bit long to me, coming a little bit over 23 minutes, as it did with the Prince's Curse. That's the underhook brainbuster, presumably an homage to another Prince's Bloody Sunday. That's in Callum's spot.
Yeah, it's one of those things where I understand. It's one of those things where I understand why they had the longer time on the match, because they've done this to other people to make it, to make the person who doesn't win look strong in defeat. However, there were times where this match, I really felt all 23 minutes and 32 seconds of it, and I just like, especially knowing how fast that Callum can work, it just felt like it was a decidedly much slower match than I'm used to seeing him in. Or I'm just used to watching it on 2 times speed, and I always think he's a lot faster than he actually is.
I mean, again, if we're talking about, people stepping up from junior heavyweight to heavyweight, not just weight classes or whatever, but just the style, for better or for worse, and the presumptions that go along with that, right? Like, like Maloney is somebody whose style I think lends itself to that really immediately, whereas Newman has been used to working at a very different pace and in a very different style. And it's not something that is going to just come immediately naturally to him. But more, I think, about Newman and the G1 to come.
I got your G1 up your block.
Oh, please. Yes.
So we're going to have to wait a little bit for Oleg versus Maloney, unless they end up being the finals or in the top.
Oh, okay.
Because they're split separate blocks.
Okay. Yeah. Olton. I'm going to keep
Bolton?
doing this. It's going to keep happening. I'm sorry.
Trust me, it's happened to me more than enough. I understand. I empathize.
To the point about Taichi, though, it's obviously nothing on the level of Goto, but a lot of New Japan crowds have really, like, he's always had, basically, since, kind of the at least since the Dangerous Techers tag team, he's obviously had a lot of sentimentality behind him, but that's really picked up over the last year or so. This match was no exception. So as much as, New Japan has put Newman in some pretty big positions, I don't know that anybody was really rooting for, him to end Goto's reign or prove that Taichi was over the hill. And he just, doesn't really have the whole, like, this guy's a ripped badass thing going for him that Maloney does. So it's a tough, it's a little bit forward and backward with Newman, I think, in terms of the presentation of him in the company.
I also have to remind myself that he is only 22 years old.
Oh, God, yeah.
That he's still very, very young, both, actually, but also within his career, even though he's been wrestling since he was much younger. But I know that he's going to, eventually find his stride. It's just that when it comes to G1 season, the learning curve is so sharp that you kind of have to up your game if you're gonna be someone that you want your name on people's lips. Callum Newman, when even these plans were announced, I was like, oh, it's gonna be Taichi. Like I didn't even give him a second thought, and I mean, I feel bad about that, but at the same time, I am consistently very aware of how hard Taichi works, and but not saying that Callum doesn't, but it's I need more. I need more from him right now, and he's not giving me it.
As much as, obviously there was like, in a sense, like, if you're booking to the crowds, then yes, Taichi makes all the sense in the world. But this is the rare case where I will carry a little bit of water for New Japan's current booking in terms of, thinking about it in terms of kayfabe or whatever.
Yeah.
If you've got somebody who you thought was literally worthy of a world championship title, challenge just a couple of months ago, and they can't get even into a G1 qualifier, what does that say about kind of the level of challengers that Goto had been experiencing? But anyway, yeah, it's one of those cases where like the sorts of growing pains or whatever that Newman is going through just have a bigger spotlight on him than some of the other younger prospects have had. He has been given certain opportunities that they haven't, but he's also that comes with a degree of exposure for good and for bad that those guys haven't had.
And I also think it's the complicated, like, not falling apart, but like the complicated situation the United Empire is in. Between people leaving the company or people getting injured, people being out until further notice. So they went from a very large, wildly popular faction to only like a fraction of what they used to be.
Yes, and I guess now, like, maybe like North American only member TJP, who wasn't even wearing color coordinated gear for those shows in Mexico. I don't know if you saw that. He was wearing red gear against the loose LIJ group, and I'm like, dude,
I've clocked it. It makes me kind of sad because if you're still gonna say you're affiliated with the group and your group has a color scheme, like the color scheme he was going with was the old LIJ color scheme of red and green and black. So no.
Yeah, Rocky Romero remains the greatest peacemaker in pro wrestling right now.
I love the matching gear. Remember, if your faction has a color palette, stick to color palette.
Yeah. So we're going to stick in Korakuen, but switch over to a loosely New Japan branded produce show the next day on June 24th for the Death Pain Invitational. Obviously, a play on the Despe Invitational that happened a while back, drawing a much more robust 1,481 to see El Desperado defend the junior heavyweight title against the crazy monkey himself, Jun Kasai, in a, quote, fluorescent light tubes, glass board, barbed wire death match. We'll get to that match in just a minute, but it was exactly what you would expect. I did not watch the entirety of this card. I watched most of it. I would certainly, I think, recommend the match that Kosei Fujita and freelancer Jun Masaoka had. It was short, but it was just really smooth and hard-hitting stuff, with Fujita getting the submission in 10 minutes with the Nemo special, a move that he's been playing over the last couple of months. In addition to that, if you want, and if you are tuned to enjoy some very plunder-heavy intergender death match, then the match with which had Kenji Fukumoto and Masashi Takeda defeating the Mi Vida Loca team of Rina Yamashita and Suzuki. This was really good too. It almost switched between some like GCW style plunder. You had a Super Famicom being dragged out to be power bombed onto at one point, and then some more traditional kind of hard hitting deathmatch stuff with Takeda pinning Yamashita after a very nasty reverse U crash in about 17 minutes. So not something I necessarily need an entire card worth of, but picking and choosing a couple of matches there. Pretty enjoyable stuff on the undercard, at least in those two matches. Did you watch any of the others on Death Pain?
Nope, those I scanned that one, so I watched pretty much. Those are the three matches that I watched.
Yeah. I don't know that anybody needs to seek anything else out. We then get into our actual main event between Despe and Jun Kasai. This was absolutely as insane as these two's preceding matches, including the one in March at the Barb Sasaki produce show, which included the aforementioned Masashi Takeda. obviously just way too many crazy spots to recap in a match like this. The highlight for me was probably Jun Kasai getting that Tiger Driver styled Super Destroyer off the top rope through a plate glass door and some chairs. That got a full,
Yeah.
yelling Jesus and jumping out of my chair out of me, and the sharp intake of breath.
I was sweating.
Yeah, no, that one, that spot was absolutely insane.
I don't know what it is about the way that they have their death matches, but as I've said multiple times before, I'm not a death match girly. I'm very squeamish when it comes to blood, but I just love watching the way that these two work together.
Yeah,
when they do a death match. It's not my vibe, but I can't take my eyes away from it, but that's in a good way, not in like the, oh my god, what am I watching? I find them absolutely captivating.
Yeah. Again, like I'm sure there are like, deathmatch hardcore, fans out there who would be screaming at me for, as a filthy casual for saying that like this has been the most enjoyable deathmatch feud I've seen in a number of years. I'm sure there's all manner of stuff happening in Big Japan or GCW or whatever that some people
freedoms
or freedoms, absolutely, that are more into this than I am, would be up for. But yeah, this was a fantastic match. It went 29-30 and finished with Despe needing a pedigree, a pinche loco, a double underhook pile driver, and another pinche loco to finally keep Kasai down. Like the 3-man match, the mat in Korakuen after this match ended was just this hideous but beautiful pink mulch of blood and powdered glass by the end of this. And unlike that match where, if you're watching on YouTube, stuff's going to get graphic a little bit here on the stream here, folks. Unlike that match where we had this incredible image of Despe's face, just a complete, his whole mask getting ripped off, and instead just opting for a mask of blood. Unlike that, you had this very, very striking mask image that happened with him here. Sorry, I'm having trouble with the StreamYard. Geez. This very different image of the initially white mask that he had bit by bit by bit, kind of being soaked up by blood from underneath it. So you have this kind of like beautiful but hideously gory texture to his mask by the end of this. If you're into the little, the aesthetic finesses of gear as they manifest in deathmatch, I really, really love this visual. If that makes
I always enjoy a big match whites.
Yes. Big match whites turn big match pink. In this particular case,
it was like a hypercolor T-shirt. It just it slowly just started like showing up everywhere.
Right. Shout out to the other 80s kids who remember hypercolor.
Let me show how old I am, but that's really how old I am.
Oh, absolutely. And then they would, you'd wash them one too many times, and then they just kind of flatten out to that like really non-color in between the two shades. Man, hypercolor, hell yeah. As if all of the crazy eye spots and the blood and the gore were not enough, if you weren't following kind of the larger thread or the larger story of these two's feud and friendship, whatever you want to call it, throughout this whole match and over the last year, we were talking before we started recording about the whole, Kasai sort of saying, Despe, I believe you're ready to die in the ring, but are you ready to live? Being an interesting question that was posed to him. The post-match promos just absolutely cinched this as a full 5-star Port Ellen match for me. You have Desperado basically saying that fighting Kasai and seeing in him someone like himself is one of the only things that actually makes him feel like he still has purpose and value in pro wrestling after watching peers like Hiromu eclipse him. And if you're a longtime New Japan viewer, you know that Despe's character has always been a very laconic, if not just straight up nihilistic one. So the emotion coming out of him here was incredible, as was Kasai's, who basically talked about how even though he's much older than Despe, he hasn't experienced the same success that Despe has, and that fighting him has given him something to look forward to. This was supposed to be their last singles match, but now that it's here, Kasai does not want it to be over, and he hands Despe an invitation to Death Pain 2 in Korakuen Hall in 2035, when he's maybe thinking that he might be winding his absolutely insane career down. yeah, this match or this feud, I should say, has done such a good job of refracting and reflecting the similarities and differences in both men's careers, and has just tapped into so many kind of emotions and threads that like 99% of deathmatch, at least that I watch, never does. It's been something I think really special and unique in Japanese pro wrestling over the past couple of years. We also, as if all of that wasn't enough, we had the great moment of President Tanahashi coming in to present the belt to Desperado, but kind of balking initially at wanting to give him a hug for fear of getting blood all over his suit and shirt. But he ends up going through that and embracing Despan. I'm sure he's just going to have to send him the dry cleaning bill.
He's a company man. He can send it to the president. Oh wait, he is the president. Never mind.
Oh yeah, just write it out. Yeah, this is absolutely a company. It's absolutely
it's a company expense. Dry cleaning.
Absolutely,
it's
absolutely.
fine.
Yeah. So we are now skipping to Sunday, June the 29th at the Dolphins Arena in Aichi for the Tanahashi Jam, another ostensibly, produce show that just kind of bit by bit grew into something much larger, ultimately drawing 4,570. Which is a very, very strong number for reference. The company got 2,752 there in March to see Goto defend against Nagata and the 4 New Japan Cup quarterfinal matches. So whether this was Tanahashi's, the branding of kind of Tanahashi's farewell, the amount of undercard title matches, the couple of mystery X's that we had on the card, or what?
The building was closing too. That was the last. I believe that was the last show that they were going to have in that gymnasium, because it's a lot of the gymnasiums that they go to in Japan are very, very old.
Yes.
So a lot of them either have to get torn down and rebuilt, or they've built another sports complex elsewhere that they use instead.
Okay.
So I believe that usually when they go to Aichi, they go to the Dolphins Arena, which is the larger arena as opposed to the prefectural gym. So
yep. It was a very, I don't know, like both the show itself, but then also the title match that obviously we are going to be getting to. I don't know.
And it not being aired on New Japan World. That was the other thing. It was.
Well, but it was being broadcast on television though, so presumably that wouldn't help to draw a domestic house though, and that the fact that it was.
It would if they, they're trying to make a big deal about it, and I think they're kind of part of it is with Tanahashi retiring, it kind of is like how Kenta Kobashi does his Fortune series.
Right.
It's that kind of magnitude of like, cards you will never see. Plus you're also drawing I believe you're drawing the Noah crowd is also getting drawn into this with several of their wrestlers being included on the card.
Yes. Yeah, there is that too, I suppose. Yeah. I will say this, if you were able to watch this card, the HD broadcast of the original television broadcast looked really good. Like you and I have talked about, speaking of Noah, about the experience of switching back and forth between New Japan World and Wrestle Universe and the difference in picture quality there. And it was just like, oh, right, I'm not used to watching New Japan wrestlers with this much clarity and whatnot. So that was nice. After a pretty enjoyable draw between New Japan and Noah Young Lions, Murashima and Odashima, respectively, you had Tanahashi doing double duty here, working an undercard match alongside Taguchi and Uemura against the unlikely team of Hiromu Takahashi, Leona, and his father, Tatsumi Fujinami, who was 71 years old when this bell rang and was certainly willing to bump and even accidentally bumping after, I think, hitting a glancing palm strike and kind of overcommitting to it. All that being said, he still probably looked better than his son, Leona, did here. You and WH talked a little bit about this with Tanahashi getting the cloverleaf submission on Leona, and as you guys said, the apple fell very far from the tree in that case. But yes, if you have Fujinami nostalgia, sure, fine. House of Torture's Evil, Ren Narita, Yujiro, and Chase Owens, now in his goofy outlaw cowboy gimmick, go over Taichi, Ishii, Uemura, and Yoshihashi, with Owens getting the package pile driver on Yoshihashi. Nothing to see there. The first of 3 title matches on the Tanahashi Jam had Oleg Boltin defending his recently won Never title against Yuji Nagata in a pretty solid match, I thought. Boltin obviously couldn't work at quite the sprint that he did, against some of his other recent opponents, or lay it in quite as thick as he might have against Konosuke Takeshita. But, Nagata's charisma kind of fleshes things out nicely with a power slam and a kamikaze from Boltin, getting him the win at 9 minutes, 14 seconds. Just a nice little notch in Boltin's belt, I thought, here. We then had Aaron Wolf get in the ring to a pretty strong reception. He says some words. I could not find an official translation. I don't know if you can tag in there, Karen. It just seemed like he was just basically saying, it's great to be here in New Japan, looking forward to competing.
Just a self-introduction. His name's Aaron Wolf. He's excited to be, making his debut around the dome, hopefully. Happy to be here. He did get a little tongue-tied, so he got a little flustered. So, but it's fine. They love him. He's in the eyes of the domestic fans, he's already a star to them. So
Yep. No, and he has a degree of kind of like inbuilt physical charisma. Looks good in his suit. Yada yada. Yep. So that stuff will come pretty quickly, I'm sure. Keeping the kind of weird, as you alluded to, cross-promotional produce vibes going, we have Dragon Kid joining Desperado, Wato, and Yo to beat Kanemaru, Sho, Sanada, and the latest victim of the morass that is House of Torture, Doki. Yo and Wato teamed up to pin Kanemaru to set up their rematch for the junior belts, which we will be getting to in a little bit later on. Again, unless the Dragon Kid retirement road is of crucial interest to you, I don't think you need to seek this one out. An open challenge by El Phantasmo for his TV title was then answered by his one-time tag team partner Taiji Ishimori. I kind of found this to be a little plotting for most of it, with Ishimori targeting LP's leg to sort of take the sudden death out of his playbook. Ishimori survives a CR2 and baits LP in with a handshake to throw the bone lock on, but before it can be fully applied, LP counters and smothers Ishimori with a roll-up to retain the TV title at 11:32. He then gives a kind of an awkwardly worked low blow to Ishimori after Ishimori again goes for the handshake. So no bearing of the hatchet there. I'm a Maple Ridge boy, just like El Phantasmo, but so I'm a bit of a homer for him, but I can't necessarily really recommend this one.
Yeah, I had high hopes for it because I am still a fan of the cutest cutest junior tag team in the world, but it was I kind of viewed the handshake at the end kind of like how Suzuki and Nagata would just smack each other. Mm-hmm. It's their version of that, but unfortunately, poor Ishimori was on the receiving end this time around.
Yeah. This is the front version of the well-meaning kind of schoolyard game of what's it called again?
Oh, the concho? No, that
yeah.
This is the concho.
Oh, sorry.
You gotta be if you go back and watch Taguchi matches, you'll find that Yo tends to do the concho a lot.
Oh, okay. So slightly different from the oil check that is used in all manner of PWG matches.
Very ninja fingers.
The weird circumstances that reviewing pro wrestling has brought me into here, Karen.
Well, in my defense, I worked in an elementary school for 1 year, and it was a very enlightening experience in Japan.
But speaking of creepy, giggling perversion, up next, the team of Shingo and Tsuji were joined by none other than Dragon Gate's Shun Skywalker. Yes, the creepy, giggling pervert straight out of Dragon Gate, or possibly JoJo's Bizarre Adventure, who is revealed as their mystery partner to face United Empire's Callum Newman, Great O'Khan, and Jacob Austin Young. I was curious about this and looked into it. Shun debuted a couple of years before Shingo left Dragon Gate, but they were never in a match together during that time. A produce match earlier this year, according to Cage Match, was the only time they've been in the ring on opposite sides in that case. It takes a while for Skywalker to be brought in, and almost immediately there's tension between him and Shingo as they get crossed up, but they are on the same page to hit a DVD and Falcon Arrow to Young, and Shun cinches things with his spinning sit-out powerbomb at 11 minutes and 20 seconds. This sparked a lot of talk about this pointing to a possible Shingo dalliance back over in Dragon Gate for a match with Shun or against Shun, though I'm also seeing a little bit of panicky concern about Skywalker hopping over to New Japan from Dragon Gate folks as well. I know you were saying on post pro res that you haven't really been watching much Dragon Gate or seen much of Shun, but he's absolutely been kind of like the central. I wouldn't necessarily say quote the main character or whatever in Dragon
Isn't that
Gate, but he's
Yamato?
yeah. It's going to be somebody else probably, but like it's like if you're like very casual, like I jump in 2-3 times a year Dragon Gate viewer that I am, it's very hard to not get drawn in by Shun and just the really good crowd work that he has. There's just
Yeah.
nobody like him as in terms of just like creepy icky vibes. He's fantastic at it. One of the most, if we talk everything that is wrong about all of the House of Torture heel turns, whether it's Evil, Sonata, certainly Show, all of these guys, and we're just like this stupid, mustache twirling, I attack you with a wrench or a random foreign object. In all of the ways that none of those heel turns have worked, the Shun Skywalker heel turn works perfectly. It's the part he was born to play, baby, to quote the late great Troy McClure. We turn to not quite our main event with Zack Sabre Jr. challenging Hirooki Goto for the World Heavyweight title, the third title match between these two this year, after Zack's rematch challenge in May in California, after Goto, of course, won the title from Zack at February in New Beginning. We should also note that match in May was also in the semi-main spot and ended in a double pin, which satisfied no one. Setting this rematch up, though, again, I don't know that any of us really had random non New Japan World Broadcast produce show flagged as the spot where this might happen. This goes at a really solid pace from the early on. Zack is targeting limbs, and Goto is going for pure strikes and power through the first 10 minutes, with a GTR and a Zack driver being traded. Goto hits a Shibata-style delayed drop kick and a sleeper, but misses the PK. And oh boy, the crowd picked up on that one. So if I had been watching this match live without knowing the result, I would have been over the moon about the possibility of this tease, right? Of Goto,
I would have
Shibata,
called you. I would have been like,
door. Yeah.
not checked to be like, Bruce, pick up the phone now.
Yeah. You and I have been calling for Goto Shibata for I don't know how long.
Years at this point. Years.
There's some really, really great reversals and roll-ups from both guys here. Zack is maneuvering to submissions, and those look as good as ever. He's torturing the elbow with one of the nastiest propped-up elbow stomps you will ever see. And as I'm sure folks are well aware, we have an injury to Goto taking him out of the G1, and you have to imagine that it was in this elbow stomp spot that injury was taken. It looked brutal in the moment. I knew that Goto was, had been a one-day scratch or whatever, but you can see how, this could be the sort of injury, if it was in fact that move that takes somebody out for several months. Red Shoes does. If you were paying close attention, you would see, Red Shoes putting the X up for a second to Zack to buy Goto some time. Goto fights through the pain to hit a lariat and a GTR as we hit the 25-minute mark. Zack hits two Zack drivers, but instantly goes for an armbar when Goto kicks out, and then we are going to Pretzel Town. Both of Goto's arms are wrenched back by Zack's legs. He adds a calf slicer, leaving Goto with no limbs, no way to move, and no belt, as Red Shoes calls for the bell at 28 minutes and 14 seconds. In a vacuum, this match in and of itself, I thought was fantastic.
Oh, yeah.
It obviously couldn't match the New Beginning one in terms of the energy or tension or, oh my God, is Goto going to do it? But the chemistry these two have is just great. And if you just kind of want to ignore everything else that's happening in terms of New Japan booking and whatnot, in theory, in a vacuum, this is exactly the sort of 3-match program you might want two veterans on this roster to have for their world title.
I just kind of wish it was later in the year. I said it on Pro Res, and I still stand by it. I mean, of course the injury is unavoidable, but I would have loved to have seen Goto take the belt to the Dome. The question now becomes, how long are they going to let Zack carry the belt? Is it going to be just for the G1, or are they going to actually allow him to carry it into the Dome 2 years in a row?
I can't imagine that they will. I mean, obviously, the let's not like get totally detoured into shooter discourse here, but the fact is, in addition to like the actual like bell to bell of the shooter match, Zack did not especially pop a massive, January 4th number in
Yeah.
terms of drawing there. And certainly we've had the lid cracked on Zack wanting as the G1 winner to challenge before the Dome itself. So I think we're going to be looking at a bit of a hot potato to somebody else, presumably the G1 winner, shortly after this. We should also note here that I can't say this with 100%, but the rumored story going around is that the decision to have Zack win here was not an audible, was not the result of the injury being sustained in mid-match. Apparently, this 3-match series
That was the plan.
was the plan from the moment that New Beginning happened. Kind of you alluded to it, right? Now that the Goto run is over, I stand by what I said, and I think we should have had each of the young guys challenging Goto, and then one of them finally coming through the G1 to earn the rematch, maybe after losing to him earlier in the year. I have to assume that if this was the plan, the thinking here is that we are getting a high-profile match between Zack and presumably a Will Ospreay at Forbidden Door, if things at all go like I imagine a lot of us are anticipating them to.
Yeah.
And that the possibility of that, obviously, we're forecasting here, but that whole idea certainly has not done anything to kind of smooth grumbling from New Japan fans about kind of the tail wagging the dog with regards to the AEW partnership. Like, if the New Japan title is being moved around in order to maybe add 500 more people to Forbidden Door, in what are we doing here?
Well, if that's the case, and you know how they can make it up to me? Give me Shibata versus Goto at the Dome.
Yeah, I mean, I hope that still happens if Goto is healthy by then. But
if I have to cope with this maneuvering of the belt elsewhere, give me what I want. If everyone's healthy to do it, that's my thing. But still.
I just when we've looked at Forbidden Door in the past and what matches have felt important, have felt significant, it hasn't always necessarily been tied to the AEW belt or I guess, well, except for the times when it's just AEW talent versus AEW talent. Yeah. The New Japan belt, maybe this is maybe this is Gato and TK thinking this is an attempt to give the World Championship a higher profile match and having Ospreay challenge for it as a former champion. But I don't know that Zack Sabre Jr. versus Will Ospreay in the UK. Fine, that's a really cool match. It's been a great match in the past. I don't know that it needs the IWGP World Title attached to it in order to draw. So if that is the kind of the math and the logic here, it's really frustrating in terms of what could have been done with this belt, with the Goto title run, and with the younger guys who are still floundering in this company right now. Anyway, to finish off the Tanahashi Jam, in the main event, you have Tana, like I said, pulling double duty and teaming up with the genius of the Arc, Naoichi Marufuji himself, to face Ryohei Oiwa and, speaking of Noah, Kaito Kiyomiya in some cross-promotional, cross-generational business. Kiyomiya and Oiwa are slowly working control on Tanahashi to start. Marufuji seems a little bit more willing to speed things up with Kiyomiya than he is with Oiwa. Yeah, sure, that's his prerogative at this point in his career. Tana playing the hits looks pretty rough in this match, but he does have a decent striking exchange with Kiyomiya, who hits the ace with his own sling blade and then misses a high-fly Muda-styled elbow. The young guys do have some decent tandem work with some big Germans and then a Dr. Bomb from Oiwa to Tanahashi, which looked great. The vets fire up. Tanahashi gets an aces high and a high fly flow on Oiwa, while Marufuji gets a Shiranui to Kiyomiya to win at 19 minutes and 10 seconds. If this was just like any other produce show, just kind of its own little weird compartmentalized thing, I would say this is a really, really, fun match and exactly the sort of oh, cool, cross-promotional thing that those sorts of cards can have. I'm just not sure how I feel about giving Tanahashi pinfall wins against Uemura and Oiwa, even if you let them get those wins back against him in the G1. And I did check that, and they are in the same block as Tanahashi there. So there is the opportunity. I get the thinking there, but in the moment, right? It's Tanahashi, and it's you know, and Marufuji's no spring chicken at this point either.
It's one of those things with it being G1 season. I would have rather them had those losses against Tanahashi in the G1 as like the notable losses that they incur, as opposed to derailing their momentum going into the G1, if that makes sense.
Yeah, no, yeah. Also, I mean, again, not to kind of, you know, hindsight this and everything, but like, how much more important would this match have felt if we had actually gotten to Kiyomiya versus Okada, win or lose for Kiyomiya in 2023, actually getting to that match? This would have had a lot more juice.
Man, what could have been, right?
Yeah. I mean, I'm not up on all of the latest, you know, Noah scuttlebutt. Obviously, you know, we had that. I don't know if you watched the match between him and Ozawa, where, you know, just the whole face heel dynamic completely inverted, you know, and everybody is cheering for Ozawa there. I don't really know how much there is left for this poor bastard to do in Noah at this point. And I say that as somebody who, like, I watch Noah. I want a healthy Noah. But yeah, no.
I think the thing about Kiyomiya is that, much like a lot of the other guys in his generation, unlike them, he's already been GHC champion multiple times. He's won the N1 before. Like, there is nothing for him to do. The only thing that was left for him to do, there were two things. One was to beat Muda, and the other one was to pin Okada, and neither of those things happened. And one of the things that I did like about the post-match, if we can talk about the post-match real quick. Oh, I think Bruce has frozen. Oh no. I'm just going to keep talking, and hopefully it's not me who's frozen. Tanahashi apologizes to Marufuji about retiring before him, and kind of slips in the hint that he might want to be able to have a one-on-one against Marufuji. Time and place, who knows? I don't know if they would hold off on it for something like, you know, the New Year in January, right before Wrestle Kingdom. But I did like that, you know, it was president to president. They're like, we should do this one. We should run it back one last time. And I think they're both aware it's not going to be the previous, like, one-on-ones they've had in the past. But I think it'll be a good send-off for, you know, to see how much the relationship between Noah and New Japan has mended and grown in recent years.
Yeah. It is a very, it's a different landscape, right? And I think a lot of that has to do with kind of the still pretty rough business, you know. All Japanese companies are doing, you know, possibly save for Stardom right now, are doing, and that leads towards.
I don't know. Their 5-star Grand Prix is looking a little tight.
Is it? Okay. All right. I'm behind. You know, the Dream Queendom draw was what did they get up to? Like 20,000 for that? Some insane. I don't quote me on that, but they got a really good number for that. Anyway, all right. So I will say this: the overall speed and rate of work in that match was, you know, pretty good. The crowd vibes were better than Dominion. It's just this kind of these weird matches of sort of like, hey, what's up with Kiyomiya and Shun questions being added when the long-term vision for New Japan feels very, very chaotic and not always in a fun way. Right now is what I would sort of say to finish off a very perplexing, but, you know, kind of entertaining.
I think if this becomes like Tanahashi's annual project, well, he's not wrestling in it, but like very much like I mentioned earlier, Kenta Kobashi's Fortune series, where he gets to put together a dream card and have a little bit of fun with it. I think it'll be good, especially because, you know, there is still that, you know, United Japan alliance where they're all supposed to be working together, as well as the, you know, the Greater Asia Alliance. And I think this particular kind of produced show would be a great avenue to bring in things and make it everything feel fresh, and not necessarily like, oh my god, New Japan's poaching all these talents, because that becomes the conversation. But I think it's the, you know, mending fences and realizing if the Japanese scene is going to thrive and survive as a whole without, you know, an NXT, you know, Japan being established, that there needs to be a bit of give and take and working together to continue fostering that relationship.
Yeah, definitely. We are moving over to Friday at the Tokyo Budokan, which on paper had a pretty loaded card for another Seoul show, but tickets had not been moving well in the week or two leading up to it, and it ended up drawing, I just have to say, a dismal 1377 compared to the 2,423 for the same venue on the same tour last year, which had Callum Newman over Yoshihashi and Boltin over Taichi. in G1 qualifiers, and then Doki defeating Desperado to win the junior belt in a feel-good, if oddly constructed match. So yeah, just brutal numbers here. Especially if you think about how easy it should have been to turn the moment that we had between the president Hiroshi Tanahashi and Gabe Kidd at Wrestle Kingdom into their main event match for the global championship. I saw a whole lot of talk about the way, and I can't speak to this, not being in Japan or really having my fingers on the pulse of the Japanese fan base, the degree to which the domestic Japanese audience was kind of put off by Kidd's quick little dalliances with the Death Riders in AEW, kind of undercutting the whole like, I bleed Shin Nahan, motherfucker, attitude that he's been trying to have. So I think that's a factor. And also, look, just the post-Naito depression is real, and there's just not really any getting around that.
I think the other challenge is that like there's the looming concern that, even though he's, says that he bleeds Lion Mark and Cerulean Blue, because there's been this pattern in recent years of their top talent getting established and then, doing a little foray with the partnership and then leaving with everything as it is right now. I think they're very worried about remaining invested in their foreign wrestlers because there is the high possibility that they could get spirited away to the other promotion and not be able to come back. Like again, Okada's been there for over a year now. He hasn't come back. Ospreay's been over there for a year, hasn't come back. Jay White's been there for a couple of years now. He hasn't come back. Like the only time that the Japanese fans get some semblance of their favorites that have gone over to AEW at this point is when you have a Forbidden Door and it's being simul broadcast in Japan at 9 o'clock in the morning on a Saturday. So I feel like there's this growing hesitation, like kind of waiting for the other shoe to fall, especially with Tekla going over there and Clark Connors, going over there. It's the not that there's an anxiety about it, but there's like, you told us this, but now you're doing this, and you're not it's like do as I say, but not as I do, and I think there is a growing frustration and concern about that.
I absolutely understand that, and if this company was doing a good job of actually elevating its domestic Japanese young talent, I wouldn't be nearly as like, well, just goddamn it, S or get off the pot about this whole situation, right?
Yeah.
I mean, this is a big topic, of course, but it is crazy to me that if you look at the departures of and I'm getting ahead of myself here, but all of the departing talent that you have over the last little while, it's like, I think if you were to go back, like Jonah's defeat of Okada in the G1 is really the last time I think we had like a really clear like younger foreign talent who hasn't really yet established in New Japan getting a big notable win over a domestic talent. And okay, fine, he immediately disappeared, back when Triple H took over. But like, I don't know that was really any blemish on Okada's record unless he, happened to take that personally, Michael Jordan style or something.
Yeah.
Anyway, yeah, this is we've got more to say about this, I think, as we look forward on the rest of this whole tour. So on this, like I said, pretty thinly attended show. You had some, again, pretty fun as usual young line matches. Again, Murashima and Nagai looking great. Some very, very basic multi-mans. We got Ryohei Oiwa versus Satoshi Kojima in a G1 A block play-in match. Folks probably heard that there was some sort of tragedy or family emergency with Bad Luck Fale, or Don Fale, as he's being termed after his reintroduction to House of Torture. So it was the strongest arm himself making the last-minute substitution. Oiwa uses his size and strength to keep things slow for the first 10 minutes, cutting off Kojima's rallies. He gets a Dr. Bomb for 2 before a big lariat from Kojima begins to get the crowd into this. Both counter some more lariats from each other before Oiwa nails Kojima with the grip lariat to confirm his G1 slot. On paper, Karen, this should have been great. Just 2 big dudes lobbing bombs, battle of the lariats, but a combo of that kind of thin and at this point lukewarm crowd, and just, I don't know, just Oiwa not really being able to necessarily underline all of his stuff kind of kept this in second gear for me. Oiwa has had really good matches with Takeshita and Zack since returning in September, but he just hasn't had that like real kind of, to use a cliche, grab the brass ring match, or really matches that were just cooking on the levels that he had either against or with Kiyomiya, where he looked like the two of them looked like they were the absolute future of their respective promotions. He hasn't been booked especially strong.
Yeah.
But in addition to that, just like bell to bell, I feel he's lost a bit of that intensity he had for most of last year, or hell, even in the 2023 World Tag League with Kiyomiya. And I'm just really hoping he has some real burners in the G1 this year.
Yeah, I feel like, I don't know, like I want to say that maybe he held back a little bit because he knew he was going into the G1, but at the same time, this is your chance to prove to people that you shouldn't have been the one included in the bracket. Other people should have been put in the placement bracket. And it's just, I mean, I can't ever be mad at Koji. It's a fact. I am a very big bread dad girl, but I feel like Kojima's been away for so long that I always forget that he still works there because he's been in MLW all this time.
Oh yeah.
So it's
fetid MLW champion, yes.
But I mean, he did fine for having to substitute in at the very last minute, and I know that Kojima probably didn't have any delusions that he was advancing to the G1 this year after being pretty much a footnote in New Japan for like the last
he's got uppercut bookings to hold to, Karen.
Yeah, the tease that Oiwa may have to fill in for him with the uppercut. I'm like, oh come on, we're not doing that. Let's be honest. But I don't know. I feel like Oiwa's momentum's been derailed, and I don't know why. Like yeah, I don't know. Like it's frustrating because it's one of those. He's been one of those guys that we were so high on for so long, and now it's just like, what are you doing with him? Like
but it's not just the I agree. But it's not just the booking. Like this match, he was booked to have, I don't know if maybe he was hesitant about really laying it in thick on somebody of Kojima's age or something like that. I don't know.
I like that he stopped the machine gun chops at one point. He's like, no, we're not doing this.
Yeah.
But it's just like, I don't know why it felt like he was not operating at the normal speed that he has been.
Yeah, no, again, you've got the lariat, you've got the doctor bomb, theoretically this is a guy who's watching old Steve Williams and Hansen matches and should just be like, anyway, but it's just, I don't know. I mean, I'm still I'm not totally liquidating my stock or anything like that, but there has been some depreciation there. I think. Up next, B block play-in between lovable loser Yoshihashi and the Lone Star Outlaw gimmick Chase Owens that he's been debuting on this tour. He's got a duster. He's got a cowboy hat. He's got some kind of Bojack cowboy boots. He's got a branding iron. This just, you and WH, said this. I'm not going to, reiterate this. Just, the generic cowboy wrestler that is the second guy you face in story mode on a non-promotional branded wrestling video game. We all know, of course, that membership in House of Torture is predicated on having a signature weapon. Chase now has a metal spur that is attached to his boots, which he tries to clock Yoshihashi with before the bell. A lot of brawling around the ring. Yoshihashi gets a headhunter. Chase gets a rope-assisted side suplex. The Jewel Heist Lariat has now apparently been renamed High Noon, so you can file that in if you're a moves pervert like me. You get more signature stuff, including a destroyer from Yoshihashi, a C trigger from Chase. Owens is going for his package pile driver, now apparently renamed the Last Testament, but Yoshihashi fights out of that and hits Karma to Chase in 12 minutes to cinch his spot. This wasn't great, but given how kind of generically and flat it started, Yoshihashi did what he did and kind of got the crowd fired up as much as they're going to for a Yoshihashi match. And by the standards of what I expect out of these two guys, perfectly acceptable. Don't really need to think about it ever again, but could have been worse.
I mean, you know how I feel about Yoshihashi in the G1. Again, another reliable guy that, is he going to have a 5-star classic? No, but he knows the assignment. He knows what his role is, and it's fine.
Yep.
And don't underestimate the power of big match whites, even in a qualifying match.
There you go. The entirely, I can't believe we're having to move over to this. The entirely meaningless Never Six-Man titles are on the line with House of Torture champs Ren Narita, Sho, and Yujiro jumping challengers Yo, Toriano, and Master Wato on the ramp. Karen, hey Karen,
Hey,
friend of mine, Karen Peter. What's the last book you read that you really liked that you think people might enjoy?
oh God. I mean, if you are into the realm of romantasy, I could make a couple of
Oh, whoa,
recommendations.
we're in the we're in the dragon boning books or whatever they are. Yeah, yeah.
Yeah. The Fourth Wing series is quite nice. Very, very good to disassociate with. There is another one called a series called Quicksilver. The sequel Brimstone is coming out this fall. Yeah.
I'm just bringing this up because I feel like you talking about horny dragon riding books is probably a better use of everybody's time than trying to talk about another generic House of Torture match on this card. I feel guilty a little bit doing this on the free post feed, but
Giving it
if
away
you
to
and
the freeloaders.
if you and I just traded recipes back and forth with one another or talked about like house plants that we each have, I feel like listeners would get more out of that than listening to the generic weapons and bell ringing spots that we got here that we've been getting in every single House of Torture match for the last 4 years. This match was just all the usual nonsense until Yujiro gets a burlap sack pulled over his head and is rolled up by Yano to give the faces the belts. At 12 minutes, this match was garbage. These belts are garbage. Everyone in this match has been presented like garbage. House of Torture proves that time is a flat circle, and I would be more than happy to just Control-Alt-Delete everything in this match from the promotion. The fact that you have a title match effectively being used to set up a match for a totally different set of titles involving House of Torture in the junior heavyweight belts a couple of days later is just ridiculous. And the fact that this just keeps spreading throughout this promotion and taking up more of my time, more of your time, is just it's infuriating to me right now, Karen.
It is 12 minutes and 6 seconds of my life that I'm never getting back. I do believe at one point during this match, I got up, I made breakfast, I put made a cup of coffee.
I hope it was a good breakfast. I hope it was a good breakfast because something of value would have been accomplished.
It was lovely. It was everything I hoped and dreamed it would be. But it makes me sad that 4.5 years later, we're still seeing the remnants of chaos circle the drain with House of Torture.
Yep.
I hate how wildly popular they are because the matches are so uninspired right now. And again, you have, well, and I'm going to say an embarrassment of riches, but you have Ren Narita and Sho, who are two of the more capable and talented wrestlers of their generations, and they're just spinning their tires.
Yep, just withering on the vine. Yep, and just consigned to rot. Yep.
Yeah.
Throwing fresh vegetables right directly into the compost.
I'm a little dead inside because of it.
Yep. It sucks, and it's going to continue to suck. The House of Torture
and the
booking,
air out of my lungs.
House of Torture booking will continue until morale improves. To rework the old army phrase. Time for a main event that is much more rooted in sentiment and story than I would suggest the actual belt to belt itself, or even the belt that's involved in this. After defeating Tsuji for the global belt at Dominion, Gabe Kidd calls Tanahashi out in a show of respect at Dominion for the man who'd stuck by him during his time in the hospital, and who, of course, was very moved by Gabe Kidd's performance at Wrestle Kingdom. The degree to which Kidd was willing to, kind of contrary to what we were just sort of saying about Fujita, or even that like Nagata match with Boltin earlier, the degree to which Kidd was willing or unwilling to unload on Tanahashi was a big part of this match. In the early going, Kidd gets a full mount, but then balks at actually delivering full, like, unprotected strikes to a grounded Tanahashi. So Tana goads him into slapping him and dropping him with a straight right when Kidd gives up the mount. We get Red Shoes needlessly inserting himself into the match, refusing to count a pin after Gabe shoves him down. It's been a while since we had, Red Shoes, making himself the story, but whatever. Kid mocks the air guitar and trash talks Tana as he has a bulldog choke on him, simultaneously telling him to both give up and show him the fire. Tana does begin to fire up with the classics, a sling blade and a twist and shout. Gabe cuts off an aces high attempt, but in the ropes, but then Tana shoves him to the outside, and fuck it, the ace hits a gorgeous aces high to the floor. And just one of those, for one or two moments in every match, Tanahashi, can distract Father Time and get away with something like that. Looked gorgeous. Gabe makes like he is about to hit a V trigger, calling back to his dome opponent, but instead goes for a sling blade and misses a high fly flow. Very much nicely tying everything from that dome match together. Kid powers through some more signature offense from Tana. The ace gets a straight jacket German for 2. He gets caught on the ropes climbing for a high fly flow, but Gabe kicks out at 2, and a second high fly flow finds no water in the pool for Tanahashi. Kid then drops the kneel tape to reveal the Oni tattoo and nails Tana in the gut with it. Didn't even have the courtesy of hitting him in the face. Just hit the old man in the breadbasket. He hits a lariat, another knee, and then the drill-a-hole pile driver all fail to keep Tanahashi down for the 3. You have to stop. You have to give up. Gabe yells at the old man as he's nailing him with palm strikes. Big suplexes from both men. A sling blade lets Tanahashi go for the aces high, but Gabe just swats him out of the sky as he's going for that. And another drill-a-hole finally keeps Tanahashi down as the pin turns to an embrace from Kid on the mat. This was a lot of fun and really earned all of the emotional and callback spots that it was kind of built around. I thought it was really nice to see Kid kind of back on the horse after the awkwardness that we talked about in the Dominion match and the whole question of how the AEW stuff has affected him.
Yeah.
Also, this was really at the higher end of Tanahashi retirement matches. I don't know that I liked this quite as much as the Takeshita match, but it had that same real interesting conflict in Kid that Takeshita had. Like, I respect this guy, but I'm going to have to basically kill him in order to earn his respect. And I'm going to have some complex feelings about that. This is the bet. Apart from that, I think this is the best match, retirement road match that Tanahashi's had. And frankly, a match that I really was happy to see at the end of a pretty middling card, I thought.
It was very refreshing because we've talked at nauseum about how Tanahashi needs to wind everything down because he's not who he is or who he used to be. But there was I think the sentimentality, and I keep going back to when Kid cut that original promo during the New Japan Strong show in Philadelphia that I was there for, and the fact that it was like the water between them runs very deep, and very much like some of Tanahashi's other singles matches that he's had on this tour or this entire retirement road. It's his a very personal love letter and his own special farewell to Gabe, because they're probably never are they in the same block for the G1 or in the separate blocks? Do you know?
Sorry, I don't have it up. I thought you.
I clicked away. Hold on. They are. They are not in the same block. So this is probably the one opportunity that they had to have this match.
Mm-hmm.
And I honestly, I don't think after the G1 Tanahashi's going to be able to have too many more of these kind of intense matches.
No.
So he'll have to be very, especially given who's in it. Well, outside of Sonata and Evil, I mean, Tanahashi's in the block with Finley, Tsuji, Uemura, Oleg, and Taichi. And Cal Newman and Ryohei Oiwa. So he's got a lot of the young guys.
And he's got to do the honors for Uemura and Oiwa at least. So yeah.
So,
But yeah, no, speaking of emotional promos on the mic after the match, moving between back and forth between Japanese and English, Kid says in 2022 he went through a difficult time mentally. I was at a very sick point, and every day for 1 or 2 hours Tanahashi spoke with me. Without Tanahashi-san, I might not be alive anymore. So having this match with him on his final road means the world to me. He tells Tanahashi you have 6 months left as a wrestler, and he wishes the best to him as a wrestler and as president. It will be Gabe Kidd carrying the New Japan Pro Wrestling standard. Tanahashi-san, aishitemasu. And that certainly broke Tanahashi.
Of course it did.
And as Kid bows to him, and look, as somebody very, think of how many hundreds of times you've seen Tanahashi finish a match or finish a show, saying that, at the end of a card. So yeah, got a little lump in my throat myself. Kid says there are more obstacles to come, but his body and life is on the line for this company. He will go to the G1 final and be its winner. Backstage, he says that he's been thinking about facing Tanahashi for 3 years. He doesn't want to get too soppy, but it feels like a fairy tale. He's worked to create his dream life, and Tanahashi is part of why he's still here. He, Tanahashi, saved New Japan once, and Kid stayed at the dojo through the company's most difficult time since that down period during the pandemic. I knew I could get to Tanahashi's level, and now I have. You have to change your own life, and when I cried over my life, nothing happened and nothing got better. I had to get my confidence back, and now I've beaten the ace. Kid says he thinks he could have beaten Tanahashi in 10 minutes, but needed to see that fire from Tanahashi. Tanahashi's body might be broken, but his spirit is not. That's who I want to be in the ring with, and that's what the G1 represents. It's a Champions League. I don't give a fuck about American wrestling. I beat people up for fun and money over there. It's all about the G1. Real kind of, the Hogan in Japan, like, don't care about that stuff, brother. Sort of attitude. He says that he's in the hardest block. I don't know about that. And he loves it. Pain and exhaustion reveal who you truly are, and Gabe Kidd is going to keep pushing to the end. I will win the tournament, and I will hold the global and world championships. He looks down at his body in the cans of Sapporo and says, look at the shake, my man. I need to get some 0% beers. Kampai, arigato, and heads off. Again, I don't know that I, speaking personally, viewed the AEW tour as big of a deal as some other folks did, but I thought he was moving heaven and earth here to kind of like get back to that sort of like really lovable badass, who's been through some shit character that I think really caught fire with Japanese fans as well as North American ones.
Well, a lot of wrestlers are chronically online, so they probably see
yeah.
they see what's being said on the blue skies and the X's and the Reddit, and being like, maybe I should nip this in the bud before people get everything twisted. So
yep. And again, look, like we could waste time till the cows come home trying to get inside the minds of people who are, at the end of the day, professional liars in terms of what their motivations are, or what would satisfy them or not satisfy them in terms of money, career, etc. At the end of the day, you just, I don't know. If you give Gabe Kidd like a really, really high profile spot, at Wrestle Kingdom, and he, wins the G1 or wins the belt at the Dome or whatever it is, and then he walks in September, is that the end of the world? Not if he's willing to kind of like do, to like help other guys get up as well on the way, right? You had all of your domestic guys leave and fail to do the honors to anybody on the way out, and look at the position that you're in.
Yeah.
So I would really, I feel like we're kind of just like closing the barn door, after the cows left, in terms of like wringing our hands over what Gabe Kidd's plans in the future might be.
Yeah.
It was announced after that Budokan show that the elbow injury to Goto would not just keep him off of that card, but out of the G1 permanently. And while obviously, to kind of our point here, this is not the end of Goto's time in New Japan, we can now add Goto's name to that list I was alluding to before of Ospreay, Okada, and Naito, in terms of veterans who were given an incredible profile or a title run, who were unable to successfully pass the baton over to anyone younger than them as that run came to an end, which is really just the story of main event New Japan booking over the last 3 or 4 years. Again, the fact that no audible was called here, this was the result. What do we really get out of the Goto run now in terms of building or establishing anybody young? We have Zack, fine. We have Zack as a placeholder champion, and presumably, he probably won't be holding the belt by the time we get to January. The Goto thing caught fire, and now no one is getting the rub off of it, and that just
it's frustrating because it hasn't been since Naito that a crowd would cheer someone's name that much, especially this year. So it's like, again, it just feels like the momentum was derailed at an inopportune moment, even if that was the plan all along. It just, I don't know, it just doesn't feel like an organic stopping point for me. I feel like, you could have easily had done this at Power Struggle or at, King of Pro Wrestling, something after the G1. But here we are. And wishing Goto a speedy recovery. And as Taguchi said in his backstage promo, the Goto revolution carries on in our hearts. So
it was a fun ride while it lasted, Karen. You and I.
Hey, you never know. 2026 could be his year again.
But of course, pragmatically speaking, this means that his spot in the tournament is going to be given to the winner of a 4-man losers gauntlet, or losers bracket gauntlet. Effectively, the 4 guys who lost all of their play-in matches had a gauntlet match on the show that finished up earlier today in Korakuen. This Korakuen show that happened earlier today ended up outdrawing that Budokan show by getting to 1489. We're running late on this. We still have an entire show to get through here, so I'll speed through the undercard, where we had another time limit draw between Zane and Tatsuya Matsumoto. Those two continuing to have a really kind of grounded and grappling focus in their early matches, which I've been enjoying. And then a tag match with Daiki Nagai and Katsuya Murashima defeating Shoma Kato and Masatora Yasuda, with Yasuda tapping out in a crab to Nagai. And again, I had in my notes here, hey, they're kind of letting the slightly senior young lions work a bit more flair and panache into their matches than in the past.
I wonder why that is, Bruce.
Stick a pin in that, maybe I noticed that for a reason. The Hontai mishmash, as you alluded to before, in terms of the remnants of chaos, we had Boltin, Taguchi, Umino, Uemura, and Honma falling to a whole mess of low blows from Evil, Narita, Taguchi, Sanada, and Kanemaru. Your unaffiliated LIJ leftovers, Tsuji, Hiromu, and Shingo defeated TMDK's Oiwa, Saber, and Hartley Jackson. Jackson was obviously there to take the fall from a combo pumping bomber and Gene Blast, with the crowd pretty into this card in the early going. It was a fairly Korakuen was fairly up for this. And then little bit of an angle after the unaffiliated former LIJ men beat TMDK with Daiki Nagai just, serving in as his little, kind of usher role on the floor, speaking to the unaffiliated trio afterwards, taking off his General New Japan Soul t-shirt and indicating that he wants in with them. Hiromu says, we're unaffiliated, so you do what you want to do. Tsuji then asks him if he's ready. He says he is, and he walks off to the back with 3 of the most popular wrestlers in New Japan. The symbolism of this, I thought, was pretty important on a card that was going to be headlined by Kosei Fujita, given that Fujita very much eschewed the traditional excursion route that Young Lions go on, and instead just kind of signed right up for TMDK right out of the black trunks. And it looks like we are getting the same happening with Daiki Nagai, cutting the line, jumping a generation, right? He's more junior than Shoma Kato and Murashima are, but look, this is, this is a this isn't a democracy where everybody gets a turn or anything like that. I think regular listeners to these shows have been hearing me and other people championing and trumpeting Nagai as a really, really interesting player here. And sure, let's start getting him into some higher profile matches and higher profile seasoning as soon as possible. I was very, very heartened to see this midway through the show, Karen.
I do love that. The first thing you texted me today was saying, did you watch the post-match of the I'm like, yes, I did watch the post-match. Congratulations, your boy graduated. Mm-hmm. He's going to, and I do love that he went backstage with them. They gave him an unaffiliated t-shirt, and then he goes back out to ringside to do his Young Lion duties.
Yes, yeah.
So his black shirt stands out with all the white shirts all around the ring.
Hell yeah.
But yeah, it's one of those things which it's interesting that they're starting to do this more frequently, especially when they still have, what are they called? The Young Guns? The ones that are still on excursion?
Oh, Youngblood. Yeah.
Youngblood?
Yeah. We're still waiting on.
They still haven't come back yet, but there are guys that are junior to them that are getting put into actual popular factions. So I'm curious when they're. I'm wondering if they're going to come back by World Tag League, because they've been gone for quite some time.
Oh, they've got to be back for World. I would hope, at the very least. Yeah. Tanahashi's retirement tour takes a detour into grumpy old man territory with a match against Tiger Mask for just the second time in their careers. Only the second singles match Tiger Mask 4 and Tanahashi have ever had. this moved at about the speed and intensity that you would expect. Tiger Mask did try to tiger suplex the Ace off the top rope, but has to settle for an arm drag. And he does get a Tiger Driver for 2 before Tanahashi plays all the hits and finishes things off with the high fly flow in 9:39. Nothing special, but if you like Tiger Mask's particular brand of saltiness, you might want to watch this, as he did indicate in his post-match comments that the 4th iteration of Tiger Mask is going to be packing it in and retiring in a year's time on the 15th of July in 2026, when he will have just completed his 30th year of wrestling. So,
yeah.
I don't have the time to do a hot 15 minutes, about a retrospective about Tiger Mask 4 here and where he ranks in comparison with the other ones. We'll get to that bridge when we'll cross that bridge when we get to it. But for now, one of the New Japan dads who has been working less and less, and it's probably about time.
I believe this match was also a celebration of his 30th anniversary of wrestling.
Well, I think this is the beginning of his
yeah.
God. John Pollock is going to murder both of us if we get this wrong. So this was him completing his 29th year and beginning his 30th year.
Yes.
He will have completed
Correct.
his 30th year when he retires in a year's time.
Start mark of it, but it was branded as the Tanahashi retirement tour / Tiger Mask 30th anniversary year celebration.
Gotcha. Okay.
Kickoff.
Yep. It's one of those ones where the more you think about it, the less certain you get, and the anxiety.
Yes, and also trying to translate this at 7:00 in the morning. I'm just no, please, brain, no brain.
So we are then getting the aforementioned 4-man gauntlet for the last A block spot in G1, and I breathe a very big sigh of relief as Chase Owens' awful country music rings out through Korakuen, immediately dropping the odds of him getting all the way through the gauntlet. He is then joined by Kojima, and they brawl around the ring. Kojima gets a big lariat about 6 minutes in, but a ref pull lets Owens get the low blow and the last testament to pin the strongest arm, as it's now up to fan favorite Taichi to save us from the darkest timeline of Owens in the G1. However, Sonata jumps Taichi on the way to the ring before the bell.
Of course he does.
Owens gets a C trigger as soon as the bell rings, but Taichi fights out of the pile driver attempt. Sonata is still at ringside doing ref bumps and run-ins and whatnot. However, when he is about to clock Taichi with his guitar, Taichi's tag team partner and final gauntlet entrant Tomohiro Ishii runs in for the save and sends Sonata off, allowing Taichi to pin Owens and ensuring that none of us are going to have to review Chase Owens matches through the dog days of summer as we go through post coverage of all matches in the G1. However, Owens and Sonata do rush back into the ring to get some more licks in on Taichi after the pin. So it's down to your heavyweight champs, Ishii and Taichi, facing off against one another for the last spot, with Taichi in a very, very weakened state here. Taichi is trying to goad his weakened partner to bring some fire into his strikes. He does, and maybe brings a bit too much fire, hitting a very nasty Gamengiri that I think just straight up poked Ishii in the eye. Just nailed the poor guy square in the eye, which was swollen up and he was holding the whole way through. Ishii's great at selling. Ishii is great at no selling. I think it's really, really difficult to no sell somebody just literally kicking you in the eye. So it is what it is. Ishii gets a superplex, but carries Taichi over so far that he is able to get his legs in the rope. Ishii gives Taichi one of his own last rides for 2. Ishii's face, like I said, is pretty swollen up here as Taichi gets a dangerous backdrop, but cannot manage to get over for the cover. Taichi uses one of Ishii's own power bombs against him with a very high stack for 2. More bombs being lobbed by both dudes. This is really kicking into high gear here. Ishii powers through another backdrop and a third one with a high bridge as a split right down the middle 50-50 crowd is loving this match. Taichi rallies through a pile driver. We get big disc lariats from both men. Ishii hits Taichi's own Black Mephisto on him, and Taichi escapes a brainbuster to give a Gato roll for 2. Taichi then lifts from his senpai's nemesis with an Emerald Flosion. Sure, why not? A thrust kick looks like it just knocks Ishii's trachea out of his neck, and then a Black Mephisto cinches the G1 field. this rocked. And in the 18 or 19 minutes that they got here, Taichi and Ishii basically put a G1 main event on all by itself. Taichi was by far and away the smartest pick for this. Like we've been saying over the course of this show, crowds have been really getting into him, especially over the last few tours, and rallying around that tag team with Ishii. They found, I think, given the Goto injury, I will say, as somebody who's been fairly critical on this show about New Japan booking, they found a smart way of getting to this, kind of giving us this like Jason Voorhees or zombie type dread of like, oh God, Chase Owens isn't actually dead, for a couple of days there. He's coming back. But then also, finishing off by giving us, rather than kind of just, giving an unsatisfying, okay, Taichi finally overcomes the odds and beats Chase or something like that. The final, no, just giving us a really, really cool burner of a match here with two very grumpy veteran strikers whose team was formed out of grudging respect after a decade of beating the crap out of one another. I have mixed feelings, as I'm sure I'll be talking about with John when we preview the G1, about the top three men in each of the blocks theoretically advancing after block competition. But hey, at this point, I'm willing to say, why not play the hot hand? Give one of those three spots to Taichi. The crowd would be very, very much into this. This match was great, Karen.
It was one of those things where, I stand by my, if you are a champion and holding a belt, you should not have to qualify for the G1. So the fact that Ishii and Taichi as the IWGP tag champions had to go through all of this, and this, again, the second half of the match is where it got really exciting. I want someone like Ishii. The way that Ishii was trying to gas Taichi up after that run-in, I was like, I need that in my life. I need someone to be, because Ishii's very much grumpy old man Ishii's. Like, he's very, very selective of who he gives his smile and affection to. And the fact that him and Taichi have this really like grumpy old man bromance in 2025, I'm living for it. And I'm going to be sad that Ishii won't be in the G1, but also it's kind of like, I'm guessing maybe he's going to have like a Summer of Suzuki where he comes here to the States or runs the Indies, or maybe he just takes a vacation. Who knows? But in the event that there needs to be another substitution between now and the G1, just take Ishii. Don't overcomplicate it. Just take Ishii and give him a project. Let him do it. Take Desperado, take Hiromu, take anybody. But just, I don't need the stress of another gauntlet. Just pick someone.
He's got very important matches against the frat house on Ring of Honor television that we all have to look forward to. So yeah. Moving from just a fight that just exemplifies everything I love about New Japan and kind of one of the most feel-good threads happening in the company right now. We move on to the whole mess of geeks I mentioned before, currently mucking up the junior tag division, as well as a total waste of one of the most organic comeback stories that this company could have booked. We have Master Wato and Yo getting their rematch for the IWGP Junior Tag titles after losing them to Sho and a returning Doki at Dominion, who, of course, patched over to House of Torture. They are trying to do, Charlton is doing his best to explain that, Doki is jealous of Wato effectively, being able to cruise his way into New Japan and being given the keys to the kingdom in the dojo, versus Doki having to grind in Mexican indie purgatory for years, completely, of course, ignoring the obvious story of Doki presumably wanting revenge on the person who pinned him, or excuse me, who never pinned him for his junior heavyweight belt at Wrestle Kingdom in Desperado. But don't worry, folks, stick a pin in that, because
but Doki also had that same beef about Sho and Yo because they were in Mexico on excursion at the same time he was over there, but they keep kind of forgetting about that part now that him and Sho are tag partners.
It's of all of the things, like, and again, you and I talked about this at Dominion, right? Like, I have no problem theoretically with Doki wanting to, go heel and take it to Desperado or whatever. Why would you need to one, throw him in House of Torture, two, drag him into the dreck that is
Kanemaru's right there.
the junior, the junior heavyweight and the never six man scene right now. Like, again, we'll get to the junior heavyweight belt itself in just a minute here, but and if I wasn't already just primed to hate this match for booking reasons, Karen, it starts with double paradise locks from the faces, quite possibly the move I hate most in pro wrestling. Just loathe to see a Paradise Lock. We get the usual House of Torture antics on the outside. Yo cleans house, but then does this weird frozen pose in the middle of the ring. I'm not sure if he was trying to remember other members, former members of Chaos, whose moves and shtick he could lift after his last match in the
Probably.
the Best of the Super Junior finals. I'm sure there's plenty of Brian Kendrick and Alex Kozlov deep cuts that he could be drawing from. Anyway, as Watto and Doki come in, Charlton suggests that Watto might be the modern day Bushi, which I'm sure is exactly what every young junior heavyweight in this company aspires to be.
He doesn't go here anymore.
Sho and Doki are wearing out Watto's knees with weapon shots and a modified figure 4. We are 3/4 of the way through a House of Torture match, so of course we get the Putty Patrol running in. But then, that fierce baby face, Toru Yano is there to chase them off. The faces rally, but Sho, not happy, having one signature weapon in his wrench, now has some sort of weird mirror reflective cookie sheet plate or some such. I don't know.
It kind of looks like it took, how in Korakuen Hall they have the signs that indicate the direct, like east and west.
Yeah, the north, south, east.
It looks like they have those. It's like that kind of like a metal aluminum sheet, and it's just spray painted black. There's no need for it. There's no. Francesca Akiro was my anger translator during this match because he was basically like, Catch 2-2 and even the War Dogs have done so much to elevate these belts, and now they're swirling the drain with these guys, and I was like, yes, thank you for hitting all the beats. It's just like, why are we doing this? Sho and Doki, again, I've said it before and I'll say it again, they have so much talent, and the fact that they're doing this, as you always call them, the mustache twirling villain nonsense. I'm like, why?
Yep.
The junior division could be so good if you would just let these guys be wrestlers and not make them into
it's very important. This is heat, brother. This is really good US heat, which is what everybody in Japan
is what it is. It's not even heat.
God. Oh yeah, no, it's Doki ends up hitting the suplex to Luna on Watto on top of this weird sign. Metal, whatever. I can't be bothered to retain the belts at 14 minutes. I have nothing to say. There's nothing to say about this match that you and I haven't said already 50 times. If you really, really want more House of Torture discussion, I would maybe recommend Jesse Collins' recent episode of the Gentleman's Wrestling Podcast, where he and Gerard DiTrolio talked kind of about how rote and heatless a large portion of New Japan has become since this faction debuted 5 years ago, and seems to be just dragging more and more and more of the company into this completely inert, heatless state. As we head towards the heat death of the universe, I will continue to blame House of Torture for that. So yeah, just a real best of times, worst of times things moving between these last two matches. But we will see what our main event, and we trust you folks, or trust us folks, the last match that Karen and I are going to be talking about on this really kind of random grab bag episode here. Our main event and the last, New Japan match before the G1 starts. Touch wood that we don't need another gauntlet play-in. With 2025 Best of the Super Junior winner Kosei Fujita delaying his challenge of the El Desperado for the junior heavyweight belt until after the aforementioned Jun Kasai match. Basically, Fujita saying that he did not want to be somebody that Desperado was looking past. He did not want Desperado's mind on this kind of, larger existential feud that he has with Kasai. He wanted his mind on the match. Fujita has a pretty flashy faux fur jacket. Despe had a mask and makeup kind of recreating how he looked at the end of the Kasai match, which was a pretty nice look there. Fujita takes it right to Despe at the outset, hitting a springboard tope to the outside, but Despe cuts off the young punk, targets his knee, and begins to just grind away at the knee for the entirety of this match, starting with a really nasty half crab that almost looked like a clover leaf or a stretch muffler. Fujita begins to buy time and come back about 10 minutes in, trying to lock on the Nemo special, with which he's been winning a lot of matches through submission. However, Despe works out of that and shoots for the numero dos to keep murdering the knee. Fujita counters it with a really nice armbar and gets the Nemo special on for only a second before Desperado is able to make it to the rope. There is a beautiful counter by Desperado, turning an enziguri into a dragon screw, grabbing the leg out of midair. And then he's able to apply a modified numero dos, the stretch muffler that Desperado's been using for years, this time trapping Fujita's arm behind his own leg. And Fujita has to verbally submit at 19 minutes and 32 seconds. Fujita's previous challenge of Despe in February was an incredible match. I don't think this lived up to that one. Leaving though the results aside, and even though I appreciate a shorter main event, I don't think that every Korakuen main needs to go 32 minutes or anything like that. Again, I keep saying in a vacuum, like so many of the things that I like about New Japan bell to bell, I'm saying in a vacuum. The through line here of Fujita trying to pick his spots to get his own submissions applied, but then also running the risk of the more wily, grimy veteran in Desperado having an answer for that, made for a nice thread for this match. But it does seem notable that this is the second time in 3 years you've had a younger wrestler win Best of the Super Junior and fail to convert that into a title win. I really enjoy Fujita a lot. His work looks good. He's got personality. I don't know that I am quite as high on him as some who view him as like a 100% lock, the undeniable future of the division for the next decade. But like, I just don't really see what the downside of having him win here is, unless, of course, and this is where we just have to start, thinking about this in terms of future booking. You think that a enshittified version of Doki versus Desperado somewhere down the line, possibly even at the Dome, is worth forestalling the actual development of young talent for. And hey, it's 2025 New Japan. So of course, that's where Gato's priorities lie. I hate the fact that immediately after this match, which again, I did enjoy in a vacuum, I had to say, why is this happening? Oh, right, because there is this worse thing that we are going to be getting down the road, Karen.
My immediate knee-jerk reaction was when he lost, is that I guess him and Robbie are winning Super Junior Tag League again and going to the Dome, or they're going into the Dome as the junior champions at and that it's
been there, done that.
Well, I mean, we had to sit through Roppongi 3K doing it 3 times, so it's one of those things where I'm just like, we talking about derailing momentum. What's left for Desperado to do? Like, why?
Doki?
But then I stand by their feud doesn't need a title though.
Nope. No, it doesn't.
You have the blood feud there. He got taken out at the Dome during like the biggest match of his career. That's all you need. Like, I feel like they're overcomplicating things for the sake of tying up the belt in a needless feud.
Yep.
And again, had Doki shown up and joined the War Dogs, I would have been more invested in that, purely because the War Dogs as heels are leaps and bounds better than House of Torture. But now you're just gonna watch him like spin his tires for the next 2 to 3 years.
I mean, like he wins the belt back by cheating, and then the junior belt is back to where it was with Show.
Nobody cares then. Like,
nope.
And then what have you done? What have you done for Fujita? Nothing.
Nope. You've done nothing to build. Like, Desperado is like he's kind of at this point with Naito gone, he's kind of the most popular, the most over, guy on the roster at this point. And you had the opportunity here to actually give a rub to a guy who, again, I don't think is a slam dunk, but has a whole lot of promise, a whole lot of upside that people have been getting behind.
He doesn't need a long run with the belt either. It could have just been just something to do for the rest of the summer, going up into Power Struggle or something that goes up until September. Like, it's just to destruction. It's frustrating because, again, this is another young talent. They've built up so much in the last year, and now they just yanked the rug out from underneath them again.
But I'm sure the exposure, of this match but again, he'd already had that. He had that in February, right? Like, he literally had this match in it. Just the inability to elevate these guys is just, it almost feels like it's now spread from the heavitweight division now down into the junior.
Well, and when you make the comparison to Bushi, what's Bushi done in the last couple of years?
Yeah. This is the thing. Like,
you don't want to put that on someone.
No, I mean, I am fine. Like, Wado was never the prospect that Fujita was. So I don't even,
Yeah.
I'm willing to cut bait on a whole lot of guys at a point.
Yeah.
I've absolutely cut bait, even if they had much, promise at one point. I've absolutely cut bait on somebody like Narada at this point, just because the House of Torture rot has gotten to him at this point.
Yep.
But like, Fujita is not Watto. The
Correct.
reactions that he is getting are not
The confidence, the
the
charisma,
the
the work rate,
the connection, the tie-in with Zack and everything. We got this very sad shot of Zack kind of, at the balcony at Korakuen, kind of looking down.
Well, I think he's also very torn because, him and Despi used to be in Suzuki together, so they also have that deep connection.
Yeah.
But it's also I feel like Zack feels very responsible for Fujita because he was the one who kind of just like grabbed him by the collar one day and he's like, "You're with us now. Bye."
Yep. Wrapping up the Korakuen show, Despe on the mic gives Fujita credit for waiting for his title shot until he could have his own clear shot, but says that veterans like him have a lot of tricks stashed away, and that's how he won today. However, you, Fujita, are incredible, and you will win someday. From his lips to Gato's ears. I will focus on whoever wants to challenge me next. Backstage, Desperado wonders if the pressure of a sold-out Korakuen got to Fujita. He needs to get to a place where that sort of spot won't stress him. There are people who have rattled Desperado in his past, but he's now at a point where he does not feel stress, does not feel pressure. So whoever's ready next, step up.
Also, Gato was on Japanese commentary for most of the show. So
yeah. Anyway, was he just talking about his blues podcast? They were talking about that on the English.
I think so.
Yeah. Look, if you want Gato, if you want to spend more time, like digging into Stevie Ray Vaughan records and stuff like that, and talking about that on a podcast or whatever, if you need to take time off from holding the pencil, that's something that I'm sure a lot of us could understand right now. But yeah, kind of winding things down here, given how good of a show New Beginning was, like if you're a Post Cafe member, go back and listen to the show that Karen and I did in February, and how at that moment you could chart a really exciting and productive road to the G1 and even to the Dome from that show in February. It is incredible to me just how both chaotic and inert at the same time this promotion feels right now. On some stuff, on one hand, obviously the House of Torture booking has become predictable to a fault, to the point that you and I are already doom forecasting everything to do with the junior belt. But the things that actually matter, the elevation of now several generations worth of young talents as the veterans on this roster continue to drop like flies, offers almost no clear picture or road to matches of substance right now. We just saw it in the main event, this hesitation to give young wrestlers credible, high-profile championship wins for the sake of heat-focused House of Torture matches. Looking ahead, it's not to say that you can't book this G1 to be great, looking at the lineup, to do the work of giving important wins to young guys, to building towards an interesting Dome main event, to building and continuing feuds that should be the backbone of this company for 3 or 4 years to come. But at this point, I just don't know that I have any faith in this promotion as it is currently being booked to do that. I don't think we can give Gato the benefit of the doubt right now.
I feel like there's going to be someone's going to go through like the old episode that we did for New Beginning and do a jump cut of us being like, New Japan's back, baby. Now we're just like 6 months later. What are we doing? Why are we here? What's happening? No, I feel like we're all the the momentum and traction they had going up into Dominion, now we're just sliding backwards. And it's frustrating to watch, especially going into the biggest tournament of the year. And then once the G1's over, it's like boom, 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 Junior Tag League, World Tag League, and we're at the Dome. We've crossed the Tanahashi 6-month threshold. We are on the doomsday clock of Tanahashi's retirement is on now.
You and I said, well, okay, the Naito thing, okay, fine. But, okay, right, the Tanahashi thing, that gives you a year to paper over, and fine, Tanahashi will be a draw at the Dome, so fine, you've got a year to get your young guys all lined up for these undeniable big matches that they are going to be having at the Dome, with a little bit of shelter and a little bit of a house provided by all of the Tanahashi matches. Effectively, none of that has happened. I can point to a couple of things that have been done well. Okay, fine. I like the fact that they brought Nagai in here, but apart from that, I just don't know what else we could really be optimistic about right now. So yeah, kind of looking forward ahead as we begin to wind things down here. Karen, is there anything that you'd like to let folks know about that you have in the hopper, presumably on the Post Wrestling Cafe?
I mean, aside from 4 weekend reviews of the G1,
Yeah.
of course, August 1st, the August edition of Pro Rest will with WH Park and I will be out on the cafe. No freeloaders, no freeness. And it'll probably be a monster one because it is tournament season. Everybody's got a round robin tournament. It'll be probably be like everything but the G1, just because you and I have the G1. You and I are doing opening weekend on the 20th, and then the 27th is WH and I. August 10th is Kate from Montreal and I, and then the Holy Trinity or Unholy Trinity, whichever, depending on which way you view us. For the finals, it's you, myself, and WH on Sunday, August 17th.
Yeah.
With a great, as always, the Rogues Gallery of Post's finest to go through all 7, 18, 19, 20, however many nights of the G1.
Yeah.
The 20th and the 17th of August. And that's it for me. I mean, other than opening weekend, they haven't announced, as of recording, they haven't announced the 20 matches that you and I have to review.
No. I was hoping that we kind of have that. I was hoping that we would have that by the time we went to record today, but no.
It literally says G1 Climax 35, A block, 5 matches, B block, 5 matches on both days. That's all it says. So, but of course, this will go live, and then like Monday morning we'll open in Japan, and then 12 hours from now probably. Oh yeah. Here's the opening weekend, all the matches.
Yeah. This us not having these matches announced yet will be out of date in 20 minutes. I'm sure. Yeah, for my part, I will be joining Kate from Montreal on Thursday night to do some collision course with her, looking at AEW's Go Home show before All In. And then on Tuesday the 15th, John Pollock and I are going to be previewing this year's G1, looking at all 20 contenders now that we have Taichi locked in, flagging some important matches and looking for, what possible, signs of hope we could look for coming out of this particular tournament. That show, I assume, is going to be a cafe exclusive. So if you want to be set to track along with all of our coverage of the G1, like that preview show and like all of the individual review shows that Karen was just talking about, head on over to Post Wrestling Cafe and get on the $6 tier. So you will get that show. You will get us on the opening shows on July 19th and 20th from Hokkaido. You will get shows from John, Wei, Karen, myself, a slew of other folks in the Post world, like Kate from Montreal, John Cena, Eric Marcotte, and of course the one and only WH Park. All of that will be available over the next month or so over on the Post Wrestling Cafe. So if you're just jumping in to New Japan for G1 season, the time is right to plug your $6 in there and get more podcasts than you could possibly ever hope for. Looking at what is, I don't know, I'm going to be kind of putting them on notice. I'm saying right now, as of today, July 6th, still the best tournament in pro wrestling. However, we will see how this one goes, and we'll see how the Continental Classic goes later this year, because that status could be up for question with given the New Japan vibes check. If you couldn't already tell from this hour and 46 minutes of Karen and I kind of pulling our hair out over some of the
my
things
cousin
happening.
Decided to take Zelda out because we've gone so long. She's like, I'll take Zelda out. I'm like, thank you.
Yeah. No, it's there was a lot to get through here. And again, it was kind of odd. Like, you and I sort of looked into it and thought, like, there's all these title matches, this Tanahashi Jam card just keeps growing and keeps expanding. We got all the play-ins. And then there was a friggin' world title match and title change that happened.
And a very noticeable loss in the G1.
Yes. So thank you very much for kind of, when we put the bad signal out, for being willing to come down and kind of look at, like I said, this kind of dog's breakfast worth of shows over the past couple of weeks. Thanks to John and Wei for being willing to host us doing this show. And thank you to you, the listener / viewer of this, even if you are watching on the free feed. We really do appreciate it. So until we get into G1 preview and G1 review time, Karen and I will be reuniting on the 20th for that. But like I said, lots happening on the cafe between now and then. So for Karen Peterson, I have been Bruce Lord. Thanks very much for listening, everybody. Take care.